I want to talk now about an important basic concept in linking, that there are really two different types of links, real links and fake links. Now, I don't mean technically speaking. You'll learn about the anatomy of a link a little later, but right now I'm more talking about the purpose of the link, about why it's been created in the first place.
The search engines want to see the real thing, not fake garbage. They want to see links that exist because the person creating the link wanted the link there for the benefit of his or her readers, not because you, the owner of the site the link points to, wants the link. They want to see links that would exist even if no search engines existed, not links that only exist because the search engines exist. They want to see links that are seen and used by site visitors, not links that were never intended to be seen. Search engines want to see the real thing. So I have this concept of real and fake links. Real links are the links that exist for non-search engine purposes. They exist because the person creating the link believes that the link adds value to his site in some way. An example of a real link would be when a genuine blogger creates a link to another site that the blogger thinks would be useful or interesting for his or her readers. Fake links, on the other hand, are links that only really exist for the search engines as a way to push up the reference site in the search results. Of course, someone still needs to place that link, but the person placing the link is only doing so because there's some other advantage to them, such as a payment of some kind, or perhaps the person creating the link also owns the site the link is pointing to. An example of a fake link would be a link placed on a website purely because the site owner was paid to put the link there. The site owner doesn't think it will be useful to site visitors and may not even have any real visitors. The site may even have been created in the first place for the purpose of making money by selling links. Now, there's no clear line between the two types of links. Rather, there's a continuum between the totally fake one on one end to the totally real on the other, because clearly there are lots of link building techniques that wouldn't exist if it weren't for the search engines, or would be more restricted. For example, I've already discussed the idea of getting links from directories, which is a good thing from an SEO perspective. But you might also get traffic from the directories. So are they fake or real? Well, they're somewhere on the continuum between outright fake and totally real. Some are completely valid, others are definitely down on the fake side of the range.
Still, you need to be aware that there is this divide, that the search engines are trying to identify the fake links, the garbage links, and thus the more genuinely real links you can get, the better. And the further along the continuum to the real side your links are, the better. Strategies that create links that are being created because site owners really want the link on their site are much better than links being placed because someone's making money from doing so.
Does this mean that fake links never work? No. There are still link strategies that involve essentially paying for links. But the search engines are getting much better at identifying these types of links, and so there are two dangers. The most likely problem is that you pay for links that end up providing no benefit. There may be a benefit today, but the benefit may disappear tomorrow. There's also the somewhat less likely danger, though still very real, that your site gets penalized. That is, if the search engines are sure that you're playing some kind of link manipulation game, they may downgrade your site results, or even block it entirely.
There's one more point I want to make. The search engines have encouraged the very behavior they complain about. Why do people play link games? Because they work. For years I've had clients ask me how their competitors can be doing so well in the search engines, and in the past it often turned out that the competition was buying links. How do you then tell the client, yes, it's working for your competitor, but you shouldn't do it?
And the search engines were way too slow to fix this problem, to find techniques for blocking bad, fake links. Google, in the person of Matt Cutts, their liaison with the SEO world, has even admitted this.
So that's just a little background information. You need to understand the difference between fake links and real links, between garbage links and valuable links, to understand what kind of links the search engines really want to see, the real thing, and to try to get as close to that ideal as possible. Now you understand how important links are, you're going to learn more of the details of how they function. In this section, I'll explain PageRank to you, a critical concept that explains why links from popular sites are so powerful. You'll also learn about a similar concept, TrustRank. Both these things treat links as, in effect, votes for your website. The more votes, the better, and the more votes from popular and trusted sites, the better still. I'm also going to explain the actual HTML anatomy of a link, what it looks like, what the various components are, and in particular the difference between a follow and a no-follow link.
The very core of the Google link revolution is something called PageRank. It's essentially a score given to every page on the web based on link popularity. That is, on the number and quality of links pointing to the page. And it's used by Google as one of the criteria that goes into ranking pages in search results. One might think of it as a sort of tiebreaker. Imagine two pages that Google believes are both really good matches for a particular search. There are hundreds of different characteristics Google looks at when assessing a page, but imagine a situation in which everything matches, except for PageRank. Which page will rank higher? The one with the highest PageRank, because it received more votes from the web community.
So PageRank is an important measure of page value, but only one measure. Google is still assessing all sorts of other things, from keywords in title tags to the size of the page, to the keywords in the links pointing to the page, and lots more. So pages of lower PageRank often rank higher in the search results than pages with higher PageRanks, in situations in which they're significantly better matches for the search query.
PageRank is a measure of the value of web pages, not websites. Every page has its own value. The basic principle is this: Google looks at links coming from other web pages pointing to a particular page. It's interested in how many links and where those links come from. These images come from the original Google patent for PageRank, which was filed early in 1998. The term doesn't actually appear anywhere in this patent. Rather, the patent is called a method for node ranking in a linked database. This method later came to be called PageRank. The patent provides lots of complicated information, and if you want to know all the gory details, I'd suggest you read the patent, or at least the Wikipedia article about PageRank. It's complex, and only a tiny number of people in the SEO field really understand how it works. And no, I don't include myself in that number, but you really don't need to know the complicated details. All you really need to know is that Google has created this vast database of pages and links between them, and has devised a method for providing a PageRank number to every page, based on how many links point to the page and the PageRank of the linking page itself. There are just a few other things worth knowing. First, the more links pointing to a page, the higher the PageRank is going to be for that linked to page. However, not all links are equal. Links from high PageRank pages pass more PageRank than do links from lower PageRank pages. A link from CNN.com or the New York Times will pass more PageRank than Joe's family blog. But PageRank is shared among the links on the page, so a page with 100 outgoing links is dividing its vote among those 100 links. Each reference page is getting just 1/100th of the possible PageRank. So a link from a page with few outgoing links is more valuable than a link from a page with many. Also, it's worth knowing that PageRank is passed through all links, not just links from other sites to your site, but through links within your site. So a good site navigation system can help to spread PageRank among pages within your site. And when I talk of PageRank being passed on from one page to another, you should understand that the page passing PageRank isn't losing the PageRank. This is like one person passing the flu onto another person, not passing a baton. If you've got the flu, you don't lose it when you pass it on. The page passing the PageRank doesn't lose PageRank. It just votes for the page being linked to. However, the site loses PageRank. If you link to another website, then the vote is being passed on to that site rather than to another page within your own site. How do you know the page rank of a particular page? Well, maybe you don't. Google publishes PageRank numbers, which you can see in the Google toolbar for Internet Explorer. Ironically, PageRank is not shown within Google's own browser, Chrome. If you point at the PageRank button in the Google toolbar, the PageRank message pops up. There are, however, various other tools that you can install into other browsers that will tell you PageRank. This one is working in Chrome. However, there are several important things to understand about these PageRank numbers. Firstly, the PageRank number that Google publishes is a number from 0 to 10, but PageRank is not really on a 0 to 10 scale. It's a logarithmic scale that runs into the millions. So the published number is really only an indicator of more or less where a PageRank lies on the logarithmic scale. It's not the true number. A page with a displayed PageRank of 6 does not have a true PageRank twice that of a page with a displayed rank of 3. In fact, the true PageRank may be hundreds or even thousands of times higher. This means that it's easier to get from the displayed PageRank of 1 to 2 than it is to get from 2 to 3, and far easier than going from 3 to 4. Perhaps more important, though, these published PageRank numbers are currently way out of date. At the time I'm recording this lesson, published PageRank numbers are at least 18 months old, and there's some indication that Google may never update the information. Who knows? There does seem to be a bit of a debate within Google regarding the value of publishing this information.
So, other companies have stepped in to fill the gap, as you'll see in the next lesson. I'll also explain why you may want to know a page's PageRank or equivalent. There's a debate within Google about PageRank and whether they should be publishing it. As I explained in the last lesson, Google publishes PageRank numbers for website but hasn't updated the information in a long time. Some comments coming out of Google suggest that the data will probably never be updated.
Don't misunderstand, this does not mean that Google is no longer using PageRank itself or will stop using it. It most certainly is using it and will continue to do so. The question is, will Google provide PageRank numbers to the public? At this point they continue to do so, but only outdated information, and that data could disappear at any moment. Fortunately, there are alternatives if you do want some kind of measure of value. But first, why do we care? Well, actually, you might not. It's quite possible to carry out a very effective SEO campaign without ever looking at PageRank or some kind of equivalent metric. In fact, sometimes PageRank is a distraction. You might hear, for instance, that only links from high PageRank pages are any good to you, but that's simply not true, and I'm sure many sites have been hurt when the site owners followed this foolish advice. However, there are cases when some kind of metric can be useful. For example, let's say you're about to pay to be listed in a directory, something I discussed in an earlier lesson. Knowing PageRank or equivalent might help you make the decision to figure out if it's really worth being listed. You might pass on a very low PageRank site, but be more willing to pay to get into a higher PageRank directory. Or perhaps you're trying to decide which blogs to work with in some kind of blog PR campaign. Again, something I discuss elsewhere. PageRank might be one of the metrics you look at to decide on the value of the blog. It's also handy when evaluating the progress of a link campaign, for instance. While you can't always get high PageRank links, and you shouldn't ignore lower PageRank links, higher is better. So the more high PageRank links in your portfolio, as it were, the stronger your linking profile. So luckily there are other systems that provide page values that are similar in nature to PageRank, what I call pseudo PageRanks. And not surprisingly, it's the link analysis companies, which we'll come back to in a later lesson, that provide this information. Let's look at 3 of these, though there are more. Majestic has a massive database of linking data, probably the largest of all these systems, and calculates a value called citation flow, which is said to correlate pretty well with Google's PageRank. You can see this information on the majestic.com site. You'll probably have to set up an account to do so. Majestic provides a citation value that ranges from 0 to 100. It also provides a chart that combines citation flow on the horizontal, the x-axis, and trust flow on the y-axis. Trust flow is another kind of metric and equivalent to Google's trust rank, which you'll learn about in the next lesson. Each dot on the chart represents a link, and the higher and further to the right that dot is, the more valuable the link. The higher the trust flow, and the higher the citation flow. Moz provides a couple of metrics. Moz rank, which is a value from 0 to 10 and is closest to page rank, and a value called page authority, which is on a scale of 0 to 100 and combines Moz rank with Moz trust, which we'll look at in the next lesson, along with various other link-related metrics, such as the number of incoming links. And Ahrefs has something called domain rating, another 0 to 100 rating. You'll see, of course, that these systems have plenty of other metrics. We'll be looking at link analysis services in a later lesson. Also, note that you can add tools to your browser to display these PageRank type metrics. This, for instance, shows Majestic's Chrome plugin at work. And this one shows page authority in the Moz bar.
So while PageRank may disappear from view totally, and in any case is horribly out of date, that doesn't mean you can't find equivalent values if you really need them. There's a similar concept to PageRank, trust rank. PageRank evaluates links between websites, all websites. Trust rank takes the concept a little further. In effect, the creators of Trust rank asked the question, what if we looked at links from sites that we know are good sites, sites that we can trust?
The problem was that PageRank is easily manipulated, and a whole industry grew up around the concept of doing so, of creating sites for the purpose of generating and passing on PageRank. So the idea behind Trust rank is that you start with a collection of hand-picked websites, sites that you know for sure are high-quality sites that can be trusted, that are not merely in the business of selling links to other sites, for instance. Then, from that seed group, you follow links, each link acting as a vote for the linked to page, just as PageRank does. The closer to the seed sites, the higher the trust value. The further away from the seed sites, the lower the value. So Trust rank is similar to PageRank, but with this extra concept of good and bad sites, trusted and untrusted. So having a high trust rank is a good thing, of course. However, Google has never published trust rank numbers, unlike its PageRank data. So where does that leave us? Well, it's a useful concept to know. Links from certain types of sites can convey trust rank, which will help you in the search results. If you can get links from these kinds of sites, then go for it. And remember, it's not just links from, say, newspaper and university sites that pass trust rank. It's also links from sites that have been linked to from these highly trusted sites. And if you really want a measure of trust rank, then remember the tools we looked at in the pseudo PageRank lesson. Both Majestic and Moz have trust rank type metrics. Here, for instance, you can see Majestic's trust rank type value, what they call trust flow, a value from 0 to 100. Majestic even provides trust values for particular topics. A site might be more trusted in one area than in others, for instance. And Moz has a similar value, something called Moz Trust.
So remember, links from high-quality sites, trusted sites, are worth more than links from low-quality and less trusted sites. Of course, you can't always get what you want, and not all your links are going to be from the world's top sites, if any, but an understanding of this concept is useful when you're out seeking links. Many of you going through this course understand HTML well and don't need a lesson on the anatomy of a link. But my experience in the SEO business tells me that many small business people and marketing people within larger companies are trying to learn as much as they can about SEO. And many of this subgroup has a far weaker grasp of HTML. So I think it's worth spending a few minutes just understanding what a link is and how it works.
Let's see an example. We'll start right at the beginning. Here's a web page with a bunch of links in it. And here's a link. In this case, Wikipedia colors links blue. Traditionally, links were blue and underlined, but the underlining has fallen out of favor, so often they're just blue or even some other color on occasion. CSS, cascading style sheets, can be used to modify how links appear to the user. And here's the code that was used to create this link. Now, the link tag is known as the anchor tag, and you'll notice that it starts with an open angle bracket and the letter A for anchor. In the early days of HTML, anchor tags were used for two purposes: to create links to things, but also to create targets. Tim Berners-Lee and Daniel Connolly, who wrote the original HTML specification, thought of links as two-sided things. A link had a beginning and an end. Today, the perception of a link is the thing one clicks on to go somewhere, but to Lee and Connolly, a link was double-ended. There was a beginning, the thing you activated, and an end, where you landed. And each end had to be anchored to a page, thus the term anchor tag. And in fact, although you're not supposed to do this in HTML5, in early HTML you could create the end anchor, in effect a bookmark, like this. Then you could create the other side of the link like this. Activating this link would take the reader to the other side of the link, the bookmark created with the name attribute, so you could create links within pages, not just between pages. Today we think of a link as being a single thing, what the user sees and clicks on. To Lee and Connolly, a link within a page was created by two pieces of HTML code, the thing that pointed to another location and the thing where you land. I use the term activate, by the way, because in the very early days of the web you couldn't use a mouse, you couldn't click. Instead, you'd see numbers at the end of links, so you'd activate a link by typing the number and pressing enter.
Anyway, that's why link tags are not L tags, they're A or anchor tags, because in the original perception, links had to be anchored at each end. In any case, there was already a link element for a different purpose, but that's another story.
So, back to today's links. I found this link on Wikipedia. It begins like this, with the opening and closing A tags. We can then put some text between the tags. This text is known as the anchor text. It's the text that the person viewing the page sees, that he or she can click on, and it's very important because it tells the search engines what the reference page is about. In this case, the search engines read the anchor text and know that the page it's pointing to is about HTML. Then we need to add the location of the page the link is going to point to, the page that will load when the click is linked on. We do that in the href attribute. This link has what is known as a relative reference. It doesn't specify which website the page is on, so the browser requesting the page has to assume the page being linked to is on the same site as the page containing the link. But we can also use absolute references like this. In this case, the link actually tells the browser which site holds the reference page. In this case, it's saying, get the page from wikipedia.org. Now, the link we got from Wikipedia also contains the title attribute. This is used to create the little pop-up box that appears when you point at the link. It's also intended to provide additional information about the link. Like this. In this case, we have the text HTML in the title attribute, so that's what appears when you point at the link. Many people put keywords in this attribute in the hopes that the search engines read them. However, they're almost certainly not used by the major search engines. There's a lot of conflicting information about title attributes, whether or not you should use them, but from an SEO perspective at least, they almost certainly don't do anything for links. So that's the basic format of a link.
You'll notice all sorts of other things in links now and then, but for our purposes, these are the only pieces we really care about, except for the rel equals attribute, which I'll explain in the next lesson. In the previous lesson, I explained the basic syntax of a link. In this lesson, I want to explain a very specific piece you'll see now and then, something that was really designed in response to search engine optimization activities. We'll be looking at the no-follow value of the rel attribute, something used to tell search engines to ignore links.
So in the last lesson, we saw this link. I retrieved this from Wikipedia. However, let's say I go lower down on that page into the external links area and look at the source code for that elements link. Here's what the source code looks like. Most of the link is the same. We have the A tags, the href pointing to the reference page, and the anchor text. We also have the class attribute defining how CSS classes can be used to display the link, which of course we're going to ignore. But there's another attribute, the rel equals no follow attribute. What's that all about? The rel attribute is intended to provide information about the relationship between the two pages. The relationship between the page on which this link is placed and the page to which the link points. As you can see from the HTML5 documentation, there are various values for the rel attribute for various purposes, most of which we're going to ignore. The one we care about is the no-follow value. This value tells search engines that the person placing this link doesn't endorse the link to document. Elsewhere in the HTML5 documentation, we get some more detail. We're told that the link may have been included because of a commercial relationship between people affiliated with the two pages. Here's how this came about. A few years ago, the world's blogs were being polluted with what came to be known as blog spam. Garbage like this. People trying to push their sites up in the search results were paying companies, often based in Asia, to post comments in blogs with links back to their sites. These posts were total garbage and of course angered blog owners. The comments had nothing to do with the subjects of the blog posts, but were instead nonsensical comments placed for the sole purpose of containing links. So the no-follow value was added to the rel, the relationship attribute, so that it could be used to discourage blog spam. In fact, most blogging software now automatically places no-follows into links in comments, and lots of other systems do the same. As we saw, Wikipedia places no-follows into external links, and many social networks automatically no-follow their links. What's the effect of the no-follow? It doesn't necessarily stop the search engines from following the links, but in most cases it will stop the search engines giving value to those links. What's this mean to you? You can generally assume that no-follow links have no value as far as ranking goes. No page rank will pass, no trust rank. The search engines will ignore the keywords in the anchor text, and so on. By the way, you may sometimes see this in links, the follow value for the rel attribute. This actually has no meaning. There is no value called follow. The absence of a no-follow value is the same as telling the search engines to follow the links, so there really is no value called follow in the HTML specification.
We've had 2 sections on links so far, and there's more to come. We've looked at what links can do for you, and we've looked at how. Now, in this section, I'm going to explain some specific details about what you want in your links. You're going to learn about how and why to put text into links. And as an example of the power of this technique, we're going to look at Google bombing, sometimes known as link bombing. Yes, you can attack websites with links, pushing them up in the search results. You'll also learn about things like where on a page a link should be placed to maximize its value to you, what kind of websites, where the keywords need to go in the link, and so on. By the end of this section, you'll know enough about links to understand exactly what you want, and then you'll be ready in the following section to go get them. You've probably already got this message from earlier lessons, but we'll quickly go over it again. You need to put keywords into the anchor text of your links, the text that's visible on the page.
The search engines regard the text in a link as a statement of what the page being linked to is about. If the search engines see cricket scores, They know that the reference page is about cricket scores, not football scores. If they see the words dental surgery, they know that the page is about dental surgery, not world news. And the more links pointing to a page or to a site with the same or similar keywords, the more of a message you're sending to the search engines. Here's an example. Search Google for the text "click here." 2 of the highest ranking pages are from Adobe. And yet, if you look at the pages, you'll see that neither has any significant component with the words "click here." The words aren't in the visible text on the page, nor the URL, the title tag, any other meta tag. So why is this page ranking for the term "click here"? Well, this is part of a Majestic link analysis report on one of these pages. I'll be talking about link analysis later. Majestic reported that there are literally tens of thousands of links with the words "click here" in them, pointing to this page, as in, to download Adobe Acrobat Reader, click here. So Google, without any on-page clues, decided that this page was a great match for the words "click here." As the Adobe example shows, it is possible to rank for the term "click here," but of course you don't want to. You want to rank for your keywords. The Adobe example merely shows the effect of anchor text. So you do want keywords in your links, and in general you don't want what I call "click here" links, links that don't have keywords, that just say "here" or "click here." Don't say, "For the latest cricket scores, click here," with the link on "click here." Rather, say something like, "See the latest cricket scores," with the link on the words "cricket scores." What about image links then? Should you never create links on images? Should they always be text? No, of course not. That's not what I'm saying. But for SEO purposes, you're going to need text links, and in some cases lots of them. That doesn't mean it never makes sense to create image links for some purposes. It does mean, though, if that's all you've got an SEO problem. By the way, when creating image links, you can put keywords into the alt and title attributes, as we looked at in an earlier lesson. But that's not enough. You can't beat anchor text for telling search engines what the reference page is about.
Anchor text is incredibly powerful. You must have links. You can't get into the search results without them. And you must have anchor text inside those links in order to push your page up in the results.
However, you can't always get what you want. There will be many occasions when you won't be able to get your keywords into the link's anchor text. A common example is directory listings. These often have a button linking to the company's website or a visit the website link. That's okay, you can't win them all. The links still have some value, at least assuming they're not no-follow links, which we looked at in an earlier lesson. They still pass PageRank and maybe TrustRank. They still cause engines to stumble across your site more often. And of course, real people may really use them to visit your site. But in general, where you can get keywords into anchor text, you should do so.
You may not know it, but you've already learned the principles behind Google bombing. In this lesson, I'm going to quickly explain what that term means, how you can Google bomb your own site, and why you want to do so.
In fact, in the last lesson, I discussed how click here links have caused Google to come to the conclusion that 2 Adobe pages should rank highly for the term click here. In effect, these pages have been Google bombed. Google bombing refers to creating links to point to a particular site with certain keywords in the links so that the site will rank at the top of the search results for those keywords. In particular, at the top of Google, though the mechanism works for other search engines too. In fact, some people call the mechanism link bombing. Actually, Google bombing is a bit more than that. It's often used to attack people you don't like, political opponents, for instance.
The term dates to the early 2000s, though the technique is older still, dating to 1999. Of course, the technique couldn't work until the search engines started looking at link text to determine a page's subject matter, and Google didn't launch until 1998.
The best-known example of Google bombing was the miserable failure bombing of George Bush's CV on the whitehouse.gov website in 2004. A few dozen bloggers placed this link into blog posts using the anchor text "miserable failure." Consequently, when anyone searched for the term miserable failure, a link to the president's bio would appear at the top of Google, Yahoo, and Bing. To counter the bomb, supporters of George Bush started Google bombing other people in order to push them up in the search results, and thus Bush down. So for a while, pages for people such as Michael Moore and Hillary Clinton were bombed and rose in the ranks. Here's another example of a Google bomb, this time in which the site owner bombed his own site. In 2007, Stephen Colbert, the host of the Colbert Report TV show, had his fans bomb his website using the term Greatest Living American. Now, Google bombs don't always work anymore. Search for miserable failure and you'll find pages discussing the event rather than the Google bombed pages themselves. Google now tries to detect and diffuse Google bombs. They're not saying exactly how, but they do say that it's not part of the regular algorithm that's running all the time. Rather, it's something they do a few times a year.
So here's the important takeaway. You can, in effect, Google bomb your own site, just like Stephen Colbert did. The Google bomb shows the power of anchor text pointing to a site. It shows that in some cases, pages can rank at the top of the results, even when the keywords don't appear in the page, thanks to the power of anchor text.
Now, you're probably thinking, but it only worked for Stephen Colbert for a short while, and once Google detects it, it'll stop working. Well, I'm not suggesting you literally Google bomb anything. Remember, true Google bombs have a number of characteristics that are going to be different from your situation. I could think of at least 3 differences, and I'm sure Google's engineers have spent more time and figured out some more. And in fact, the default is for Google bombs to work unless their special detection algorithm, every couple of months, determines that something else is going on. What else? Well, firstly, with true Google bombs, the links point to pages that don't have the keywords or are badly optimized for the keywords. Even in Stephen Colbert's situation, his homepage was ranking for the term Greatest Living American, but the homepage didn't use that term. Next, the links are generally created very quickly. Someone announces the bombing campaign, and friends and fans jump in and create the links. In a more natural link building scenario, something I'll talk about in a later lesson, links are built more slowly, rarely all of a sudden. Although the search engines are aware that rapid link growth is natural in some situations, such as news events. And another big difference is that there's talk online about the Google bomb, which simply doesn't happen in normal linking scenarios. The campaign itself becomes a topic of conversation.
I'm pretty sure Google uses the first 2 characteristics, maybe the third, and probably some others I haven't thought about. Regardless, the basic concept behind Google bombs, that keyworded links push sites up in the search results, is an indisputable fact. It works, and you can use this concept for your site. In this lesson, I want to quickly run through a few more things to think about when building links to your website. From the idea of getting links from relevant sites to where links should be placed within a page. By the way, I realize we haven't yet covered the subject of how you're going to get these links, but don't worry, we'll be getting to that subject soon. We're still looking at background issues. Linking is so important to SEO, the single most critical concept, that a full understanding of links is important. During a decade of working with small businesses, helping them generate more traffic to their sites through the search engines, over and over again, I saw nicely optimized websites losing out to competing sites that were a mess from an on-page optimization standpoint. And it was always because the competitor had done such a great job in linking. So, don't worry, we'll get to the subject of where you'll find links soon, once I've finished explaining what kind of links you need.
So let's start with that idea of relevance. It's something you hear a lot about in the SEO business, and as usual in this business, there's some truth and a lot of hype. The basic concept is links from relevant sites, sites somehow related to the subject matter of your site, are more useful than links from non-relevant sites. If you sell rabbit hutches, then a link from a directory of rabbit or pet sites is more valuable than a link from a real estate blog. If you have a cricket website, you're better off getting links from other cricket websites than from baseball sites. This is probably true. If a bunch of cricket websites link to your site, then that's a big clue to the search engines that your site is not only about cricket, but is important and popular. However, here's where the usual SEO nonsense enters the picture. It's common to hear that only relevant links count, and there are a few problems with that. The first problem is, what does relevant mean? How does a search engine determine relevance? Take a look at this blog, for instance. This guy has a variety of interests, evidently aviation, space travel, technology, and so on. But now and then, he writes a little about cricket. Most of what's on this page is not about cricket. Clearly, this isn't a cricket site. But does that mean somehow this link to the ESPN cricket website is not relevant in some way? Of course it's relevant. So that's the first problem with the relevant-only argument. How do you measure relevance? At which point you start ignoring links because they're not relevant by some measure. The other problem with the argument is that it totally ignores the power of PageRank, TrustRank, and keywords within the link anchor text. Would Google really ignore a link from a high PageRank and highly trusted site just because the link might not, by some measure, be relevant, whatever that means?
No, of course not. So my theory about relevance is this, that the search engines try to determine relevance and reward for a link from a truly relevant site. Links from other sites that are clearly cricket sites would help to pass some relevance. But that doesn't mean links from sites that are not so clearly relevant are valueless. They still carry value in various ways. So don't buy the nonsense that only relevant links are going to help you.
How about multiple links from the same site? What if you have 100 links from one domain? Well, I always say that 100 links from one domain is not as valuable as one link from 100 domains, and I think that just makes sense. I've seen research stating this, but I've long believed this just based on pure logic. Why should 100 or 1,000 links from a domain carry as much value as a single link from 100 or 1,000 websites? It just doesn't make sense.
Having said that, though, in the early days of SEO, putting a whole bunch of links on a single site really did have a significant effect. But it doesn't make sense that large numbers of links from the same domain should carry a lot of weight. So eventually, the search engines just had to fix that problem, and they did.
These days, in fact, link analysis tools, which we'll look at in a later lesson, don't just report to you how many links point to your site, they also tell you how many different websites, domains link to you, and in fact how many different IP numbers link to you. A single IP number can carry multiple websites, and it's likely that sites hosted on the same IP number are in some way associated, and thus multiple links from the same IP number probably carry less value than links from different IP numbers. I'm not saying you should limit the number of links on each site. Go ahead and get as many as you can. All I'm saying is that the law of diminishing returns applies. Each additional link has less value than the last. In fact, Majestic, as we can see here, even shows us how many different subnets link to the site. What they mean by this is how many different C block IP numbers are linking back, because sites with IP numbers very close to each other may also be somehow associated, as IP numbers are assigned to companies in blocks of contiguous numbers. IP numbers contain 4 numbers separated by dots, like this. Each of the 4 is a block, starting with A on the left and ending with D on the right. The C block is the third block from the left. So in this case, Majestic is telling us how many different IP numbers that vary down to the C block have websites that are linking to this site, regardless of the last number, the D block. Although we talk about the C block varying, it's the combination of numbers that include the A, B, and C blocks that counts. In other words, the number that appears in the C block space might be exactly the same, but if the A or D block has a different number, then Majestic regards it as being a different subnet. These are 2 different subnets, for instance. This is a well-known and accepted concept in SEO, and in fact there are web hosting companies that specialize in selling hosting services on multiple C blocks to people who are playing SEO games, who want to set up multiple sites and have them on different non-contiguous subnets. Next, links to your site with links on the same page to bad low-value sites are likely to have low value themselves. Again, this makes sense if you think about it. Links, as you've learned, are votes. So if a website owner is voting for a lot of garbage sites, the search engines are likely to think that all votes, all links on that page, should probably be viewed with caution. At best, the links could be devalued, at worst ignored. So the ideal is to avoid these kinds of pages and only have links from pages that link to high-quality sites. Finally, where on the page should links be placed? Well, here are 3 basic rules. Firstly, the higher up on the page, the more value the link is likely to have, following the SEO concept of prominence. It's hard to tell how much difference this makes, but in general, high on the page is better than lower. Also, again following the concept of prominence, it's likely that keywords early in the anchor text are going to be more valuable than keywords later in the anchor text. And again, it's hard to know how much difference it makes, but in general, the first few words in the link are likely to be more highly weighted than the words later in the link. Also, and this is very important, links in content are more valuable than links in navigation or in sidebars. This also makes sense, especially if you know that companies selling links in their sites often put them outside the navigation. In particular, they did this in the early days. These days, of course, you'll find plenty of companies selling links that are specifically placed inside content. Anyway, whenever out getting links, if you have the option between inside content or outside, such as in the footer or blog roll sidebars, you always pick the content. Of course, you won't always have the choice, but if you do. Finally, hidden links. It used to be popular to hide links that have been placed for a purely SEO purpose, and I still see this happening now and then. I recently ran across this in a lawsuit in which I was acting as an expert witness. Obvious tricks used to hide links, such as creating links in white text on a white background, or creating hidden layers, are a really bad idea and could get the linking site penalized by the search engines. And of course, if the search engines do detect this kind of link hiding, they're going to devalue the link down to 0, so such links won't help your site. But what about links in no script tags? These tags are designed to enclose text that only appears to the browser user if the browser either can't work with scripts, such as JavaScript, or has had scripts turned off. So there can be good reason to put links between no script tags sometimes, and doing so is unlikely to get the site holding the page penalized. But it's also unlikely that such links have any value. If they do have any value, it's probably very low, and in fact it's most likely that they do not pass any value to the reference page. Finally, it's a good thing to have links pointing to various pages within your website, not just to the home page. It looks more natural to search engines and suggests that your site really does have content that's worth linking to.
So this has been a quick summary of a few things, good and bad, related to links you'll be building. But again, don't think that if you don't get perfect links, your link campaign is a disaster. Certainly some links carry no value at all, such as hidden links. But more often, links carry a range of values. You want perfect links, of course, but even not so perfect links can help you overall.